One of the things you find out in life, or at least should find out in life, is that it's very hard to know what you ought to do if you don't know who you are. Many of us may waste many years of our lives trying to force the world and God to accept us as we wish to be, rather than making the best of what we've actually got in the situation we happen to be in. This is happening to America on the world stage and at home. We don't know who we are, and it's affecting our ability to decide what to do. Overseas, we let our emotions get ginned up by some crisis somewhere, and we send in the troops only to find out we have no way to get out and no interest in staying in. And as a result, the finest fighting force that has ever existed on the face of the planet repeatedly suffers defeat and humiliation at the hands of our politicians. Here at home, we either rip at our fellow Americans as if they were enemies, or we listen to them with real civility and find out, holy crap, some of them are actually enemies. As this Klavan year comes to an end, we find our divisions and confusions rising up again in ways that are bound to play themselves out in the Klavan year ahead. We're going to talk all about it. So, obviously, we're talking about Trump. Trump has declared that he's pulling out of Syria. There are about 2,000 troops. This is the place where ISIS went nuts. They had, remember that Obama pulled out of Iraq in 2011. That was what he had promised to do. I said at the time he promised it. I said he was making the wrong promise. He should promise to pull us out of Afghanistan and to double down in Iraq. But did he listen to me? No, he didn't. And as a result, ISIS took off and spread. And you remember this is when he said, oh, it's the JV team of Al-Qaeda, because he was a pompous pseudo-intellectual ass who didn't know what the hell he was talking about. And by 2014, ISIS controlled about 40,000 square miles of territory. And we have been bragging on Trump on this show because he sent Madison there, and it took him about 20 minutes to wipe these guys off the face of the earth, destroy their caliphate, and get rid of them. And now he comes out and kind of suddenly, apparently, according to people close to the administration, this happened suddenly without too much consultation. He released a video saying he's pulling him out. Let's play that video, cut one.
We've been fighting for a long time in Syria. I've been president for almost 2 years, and we've really stepped it up. And we have won against ISIS. We've beaten them, and we've beaten them badly. We've taken back the land, and now it's time for our troops to come back home. I get very saddened when I have to write letters or call parents or wives or husbands of soldiers who have been killed fighting for our country. It's a great honor. We cherish them, but it's heartbreaking. There's no question about it. It's heartbreaking. Now we've won. It's time to come back. They're getting ready. You're going to see them soon. These are great American heroes. These are great heroes of the world because they fought for us, but they've killed ISIS, who hurts the world. And we're proud to have done it. And I'll tell you, they're up there looking down on us. And there is nobody happier or more proud of their families to put them in a position where they've done such good for so many people. So our boys, our young women, our men, they're all coming back, and they're coming back now. We won, and that's the way we want it, and that's the way they want it.
Now, let me say first off, and this is going to tick some of you off, but I don't care, because I hated this video. I just hated it. And this has nothing to do with whether you think it's a good idea to pull our troops out or not. It was calling on the fallen soldiers to support his policy. And the reason I hate this is the fallen soldiers were real men. They were actual men. They were actual human beings and are still with us in another kingdom. They're still there. But some of them were liberals, some of them were conservatives, some of them were Democrats, some of them were Republicans. They had all kinds of different political points of view. They are not little drawings of angels that Donald Trump or Barack Obama or anybody else gets to call to the service of his policy. That is wrong. That is a misuse. That is a misuse of these guys who sacrifice their lives as the sharp end of the spear of American liberty and American values in the world. It's just the wrong thing to do. Now let's talk. I had to say that because it made me gag. But now let's talk about the policy itself. Of course, let's hear the other side, and we can always rely on Lindsey Graham to hear it. I'm not knocking him. He is consistent. He is a hawk. The guy would invade a Portishead if he thought there was an Iranian in there taking a leak. You know, I mean, this is a guy who believes this, but he makes a very concise argument for why he thinks this is utterly the wrong thing to do.
When Obama pulled out of Iraq, I knew exactly what was going to happen. The military told President Obama, if you leave now, the radicals that are still around are going to regenerate, and all the people that helped us in Iraq, a lot of them died. Same thing's going to happen in Syria. This came out of left field to me. Congress hasn't been informed of this decision. Congress needs to call the administration over like we did in Iraq and ask the Trump administration, what are you doing and why? The one thing I can assure everybody, that the Kurds are at risk. Our American personnel on the ground, aid workers and diplomats are at risk. We're going to be seen as having abandoned an ally. Good luck getting somebody to help you fight this war in the future. Iran's going to be really happy, and the ISIS folks who got a shot in the arm, and Turkey is licking their chops. If you're a Syrian Kurd today, it's a bad day for you. If you're an American who believes that we need to keep the war over there, not here, bad day for you. And I know the military commanders have advised the president that withdrawing this 2,200 force would create a lot of national security concerns for our country. And on top of the list is the jeopardy we put the Kurds in.
The Kurds always get screwed. I mean, we say we're going to protect them. We call them to our service. We say we're going to collaborate with them. Then we dump them and they get killed. Erdogan in Turkey is just waiting to slaughter these guys. And he is not our friend, and he is not the friend of our policies, either over there or here. He is an Islamist tyrant, moving a country that was once more or less secular within an Islamic context toward more and more oppression. And he wants to kill off the Kurdish rebels. And they've been protected by the fact that they're with us. They no longer will be. Now, remember, all the objections about what Trump is doing have to do not with what's happening now, but what people fear will happen, which is that the area will descend into chaos and murder, as it did when Obama pulled out of Iraq. And I think that's kind of guaranteed. Why? Because that's how they roll in the Middle East. The Middle East is an oppressive, violent, bloody place. And so the question is it in our interest? Is it in America's interest for us to risk our sons keeping the peace in some of these places? And here is my problem, okay? We don't know who we are about this, and we never do. So what we constantly do is we see a crisis and we send troops in with a mission. Then a new president comes in with a completely different idea of who America is, and everything changes. And who gets screwed? The troops get screwed, our allies get screwed, the world kind of gets screwed again and again. President George W. Bush, after 9/11 and the shock and trauma after 9/11, basically came up with a huge, I think maybe a little bit over huge policy where we were going to spread democracy in the Middle East. It wasn't a senseless policy. The idea was if we spread democracy, terrorism won't take root, and all these terrible Wahhabi Islam versions of Islam won't get radicalized, and we won't be the villain anymore. And so now they'll have democracies over there. You know, in some ways, it came close to working. The Arab Spring was a tremendous upsurge and call for more freedom in the Middle East. George W. Bush almost pulled it off. What was the problem? The problem was he was gone. He didn't do it fast enough. He was gone. And a new president came in with an utterly different idea of what America should be. You know, they're comparing what Trump is doing, pulling out here, to what Obama did in pulling out of Iraq. And that may be a fair comparison tactically, but it's not a fair comparison philosophically, because the two men have utterly different visions of what America should be. What Obama saw in the future, because he always knew what the right side of history was, what Obama saw in the future was that we were just going to become another state in the world nation. He said it himself. It's not fair for one country to be ahead of everybody in the world, and we apologize because we've been arrogant and all this stuff. And so that's why he was pulling out. He was not pulling out for the same he was doing the same thing that Trump is doing, but not for the same reason. Trump has a different vision. Trump's vision is we live in a great big world of competing nations in which we are the best nation, and our responsibilities stop at our boundaries. The New York Times, a former newspaper, attacked him today, or kind of dug at him today, by saying that he'd rather use his troops on the American borders than in Syria. He would, and that's his philosophy. That's absolutely right. Most people don't know where Syria is. They don't know why we should be in Syria. He won't pay right now any political price for pulling out. the problem is the next time these guys rise up, and they will, the next time you turn on your TV or your phone or whatever you're looking at for your news, and you see guys dressed in black and masked beheading people who are you're sympathetic toward, whether it's Yazidi women being sold into slavery, or some American guy who's over there for some reason who gets beheaded, when you start seeing that stuff, what are you going to do? The same people who are saying, yes, America first, are going to be saying, we've got to go in there and we've got to do something about this. And the same Democrats who said, what a wonderful guy Obama was keeping his promise, pulling out, are going to say what a terrible guy Trump was keeping his promise, pulling out. We don't know who we are on the world stage. Here's what I think. I am kind of an imperialist. I actually believe that America is a de facto empire that doesn't take the benefits of empire, which is control of the countries that we have to fight with and some kind of profit out of them. We don't do that, but we take on all the responsibilities of empire that are what bring empires down, which is the military responsibility to fight things out. To me, we're in there. We're stuck with it. We have an interest. Our interest is that if ISIS spreads again, and it's not just ISIS in Syria, they're still there, and Al-Qaeda is still there. Pardon me, if they spread again to take territory, they inspire and invite terrorists to act on their behalf. We remember people killing people saying, oh, yes, I'm acting on behalf of ISIS. I believe the gay bar that got shot up in Florida, that's what he said, because they were inspired by this dream they have of an Islamic caliphate that seemed to be coming true. We have a responsibility to that. Do we have a responsibility to keep Iran back and to keep Russia from using its influence? Russia has a naval base over there, I believe, but they certainly want influence in that territory. Look, there's no walking away from history. There just isn't. I think Israel and Saudi Arabia are more responsible for taking care of Iran than we are. But 2,000 troops, I don't know. That doesn't seem like such a big investment. This seems to me like a mistake. It seems to me like a mistake, but we're going to find out. But the thing is, you have to decide before the crisis, who you are. Just like a girl has to decide before she gets into the backseat of a car with a guy, she's got to decide who she is. We have to decide who we are on the world stage. What I think is it's all well and good to say we're not the world's police, but we are the big dog for freedom. We're not the only big dog. Russia, maybe a paper tiger, but there's still a big dog. China, ever increasing big dog, but we are the only big dog for freedom. I think sometimes we have to live up to that responsibility, and I think this was a case where we could have done it without doing much. I know Trump wants to bring people home. I respect that. I respect the idea that we shouldn't be involved, but once we're there, once we're holding up the roof, we shouldn't let it come caving in. The other thing that happened yesterday that also speaks to this was Paul Ryan's farewell. He made a kind of lovely farewell speech about who we are now and how our politics is broken. That's the way he put it. I may be the last fan Paul Ryan has. He didn't want to be Speaker of the House, and he wasn't a very good Speaker of the House. I don't think he got enough accomplished. But to me, if you don't like Paul Ryan, you're not into conservative politics. When I say that's two words, not just conservative, but politics. Politics is getting 100 people, 300 people who disagree to vote on the same thing, all of them with huge egos and constituencies at home. And Paul Ryan was trying to do that. And he started out as a policy guy, he started out trying to fight the debt and reform entitlements. I think that is a huge conservative issue. I think that it is a big issue. Right now, we are making more tax money because of the tax cuts than ever. We're taking in record amounts of money, and we're in record debt. That's a spending problem. That's a provable spending problem. Paul Ryan had the guts to talk about doing that. He failed. Failure's not a sin. He tried, but he failed. And the fact that conservatives jumped on his back because he wasn't a big hawk on the borders, because he couldn't get the dogs in line, he couldn't wrangle the cats well enough. I think that was wrong. He braved what was called the third rail of politics by standing up and saying we've got to reform entitlements, and I respect him for that. Despite his failures and moments of incompetence, I respect him for that. So here's his speech. He got up and talked about how our politics is broken. Let's play cut number 3.
You know, we have a good sense of what our politics should look like. A great clash of ideas, a civil, passionate discourse through which we debate and resolve our differences. A system of government, our system doesn't just allow for that. Our system depends on that. One side may win, one side may lose. We dust ourselves off, and then we start anew, knowing that each one fought in pursuit of their honest ideals. But today, too often, genuine disagreement quickly gives way to intense distrust. We spend far more time trying to convict one another than we do trying to develop our own convictions. Being against someone has more currency than being for anything. And each of us has found ourselves operating on the wrong side of this equation from time to time.
So he goes on to talk about how social media fuels the kind of outrage machine, which is fair enough. But it is also fair to say that the divisions in the political world reflect the divisions in the country. There was a USA Today Suffolk University poll that showed we don't agree on almost anything. Republican voters worry that the newly empowered congressional Democrats will go too far in investigating Trump. Democrats worry they won't go far enough. Republicans want Congress to start the year by reducing illegal immigration and funding the border wall. Democrats want Congress to begin by addressing health care. Just about everybody agrees that we are divided. An overwhelming 78% said the country has become more divided since Trump took office, not more united. I'm not even sure that's true. I think that maybe we were divided under Obama just as much. Ryan ended on a note of hope. Let's play that. It was a really interesting thing to say. Cut number 5.
If we do these three things, make progress on poverty, fix our immigration system, and confront this debt crisis, we can make this another great century for our country. Look, I recognize that these challenges are ones we haven't made much progress on in recent years. But I got to tell you, I am confident we still have it in us to solve them. A good friend of mine recently commented to me that amid the frenzy of politics today, he's got more faith in our system of government than ever before. As he put it, in our system, really bad ideas, they get killed. And good ideas, they just take time. Our problems are solvable if our politics will allow it.
You know, he talked about how close we came, for instance, to an immigration compromise. It was the Democrats who walked away from that because they want this issue. They don't want to lose the issue. They don't want to give Trump his wall. If they give him his wall, then he has a victory and he can go back. Even if it means resolving the Dreamers problem, they don't care. They want the issue, and the Republicans have their heads, up their rear ends because they can't come together and decide that they're going to make some compromises, that they're going to face down their base and say, look, something has to be done about the people who are here illegally. We have to give them at least a path to legitimacy, if not to citizenship. And in return for that, we get the wall, we get the kind of security that we need. The brokenness of our policies reflects the brokenness of the country because we don't know who we are. And the left, I think, has gone insane, and the right has kind of is in division. The right is in division for one reason, because a wider spectrum of people belong in the right. The left, I think, is really moving more and more solidly into real left-wing craziness territory. On the right, we have our right-wing crazies, but we have a lot of people blending even to classical liberals, people who really not that long ago, 10, 20 years ago, would have been typical Democrats. I mean, if you go back even further and listen to a John F. Kennedy speech, he sounds like a Republican today. I mean, the Republicans are not that far out, far away from what Democrats used to be back in the 60s, or it's really the left that has drifted left, despite what the press says. Speaking of the press, that is the one group in our country that we can depend on to know their identities. They are a bunch of lying leftist scum. I just want to play, before I close, we have a guest coming on, a really interesting guy you're going to want to hear from, named DJ Jaffe, who's going to talk about violence and mental illness. I got in touch with him after the mass shooting at the synagogue, and he has really fascinating things to say. But before that, I just want to play, this is from Grabian News. They put together a couple of montages of some of the press, how can I put them? The press overstepping throughout the year. And I put some of them now. I had our guys put together a montage of Trump derangement syndrome in the press throughout the year. And here it is from Grabian.
A bombshell report. This is a bombshell. This is a bombshell. This bombshell
dropped a bombshell. And dropped the bombshell. The bombshell.
That's a bombshell. Yeah, this latest bombshell.
Who put out that bombshell? Bombshell accusation.
Bombshell accusation.
Well, that was the bombshell.
It's obviously a racist. He's obviously a demagogue. He obviously condones anti-Semitism.
That's what happened in Nazi Germany.
This is Trump's Reichstag fire. We're going to see if this reign lasts for 30 days or 2 years or 1,000-year Reich.
Republicans have to call this out because their souls are on the line.
It's not even a question of whether it's presidential behavior or not. It's not minimally human behavior.
This has now become a struggle about good versus evil. And the president of the United States is evil.
We can no longer say Trump's the bad guy. If you vote for Trump, you're the bad guy.
Tens of millions of people voted for him.
Are you suggesting that they're racist or
Yes.
the people who vote, all the people who voted for Donald Trump are racist?
Yes.
There is something to be said about that the folks calling for stability might need to check their privilege.
These policies that this administration is putting forth are intentionally cruel. They are racist, and it is our job as citizens to speak out against that.
If you vote for Trump, then you, the voter, you, not Donald Trump, are standing at the border like Nazis.
Those people who are supporting what he's doing here are racist, period.
I love it. So here's what we can look forward to. The Democrats are taking over the House. More division as we try and figure out, as this country goes through what I think is going to be a 10-year process of finding out what the new normal is, who we are, what we believe, both overseas and at home, and where we stand. That will be worked out both in our politics and in our culture. We each have a responsibility to be part of that fight. But the one thing we can all depend on is the press is going to lie to us and try to move us to the left. So we all have at least a responsibility to fight back, and at least we'll get some laughs out of it.